Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech protected.
Good morning, Rockingham, and welcome to this special presentation of Mike Smith Presents. Today we're talking about Let's Take Action Rockingham. I'm here with Jenna Koloski. She's from the Vermont Council on Rural Development, and she's heading a process that they started last month here in Rockingham, looking at setting goals for things that we can do in the future to help our community. Is that right?
That's right, exactly.
Okay,
yes.
Thanks, and welcome here today.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming down.
Me.
Can you tell me a little bit about the Vermont Council and how you got started in it maybe, and then how things got started with Rockingham?
Sure, yes. So the Vermont Council on Rural Development, essentially we are a facilitator of public process. We are actually charged with that role by the federal farm bill. But it doesn't come along with any power or funding of any kind. So we're an independent nonprofit organization, funded like most nonprofits, a whole different array of donors and membership and also grants and some state funding, but not a whole lot. So so we're independent and we're nonpartisan as well. And we essentially facilitate public conversation. So the core of our work, the heart of our work, is the community work, which we'll get into a lot more here. So working directly with communities to provide a neutral, facilitated platform for discussion. We also work at the state level. We kind of listen across the communities we work with and add those up, and we do bring councils together at the policy level to address issues affecting rural Vermont. But the important thing for today is our community work.
And I've looked at your website. You've done this in a number of communities.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
we're definitely not the first. It's been
that's
going
right. Although
on since
interestingly,
2012.
Rockingham was actually one of the first.
Oh, really?
Yeah, back in 1998, I think it was.
Really?
So that was before my time with the council. In fact, before my executive director's time as well. But yeah, we've actually been doing this for about 20 years, and we've worked with 70 different communities around the state. But yeah, so we only work where we're invited. So in a community visit process. Our fundamental value as a facilitator is that we don't know what's best for any town, and it's all about local leadership and local engagement. And so we only work where we're invited by official town leadership. So,
So this the reason you're here is someone from our town government. Was it the town or the village, would you say?
Both. So we were invited to, I believe it was Gary Fox in the Economic Development office that invited us to come down, and we always start just with a meeting with, in most towns, the select board. In this case, it was a joint meeting of the select board and trustees with an invitation to Saxons River to participate as well. And we just share what this process is all about, and in the end, and this was over a year ago.
Really?
Actually, I know because I was pregnant. Now I have a 15-month-old, so this is a long time ago. But what we do is ultimately they decided to invite the process. We bring it back to our board. We have a unique board structure. So that federal farm bill authorization, that is the one thing it allows us to do. So our board has members from the governor's cabinet, whether Republican or Democratic, doesn't matter to us. Federal leadership, nonprofit, business, and community leadership, and then also representatives from all three of our congressional delegation offices. So
a wide-ranging board, with both vertically and horizontally.
Yeah, and that's the board that makes decisions about where we offer community processes. We offer these free of charge to towns, so you can imagine there's a lot of interest in these types of community conversations, and so the board felt like this would be the right time, and there was enough interest and energy in Rockingham to have this conversation.
So this process was developed over time to be, so you must have sort of a form, it's not exactly, I'm sure every town is different, but you have a basic structure and form that formula that you use.
Exactly. There is kind of a template to how it all works.
Mhm.
So essentially, and it's really, it has adapted and evolved. You know, I think the process that we led, having not been a part of it, but looking back at the process in 1998 versus now, it's pretty different. I think it's
Oh, I
evolved and
imagine, yeah.
changed and deepened over time, I think. But essentially, the way it works is the process is a 4-month series of public meetings. So it starts with that invitation from leadership.
Mhm.
And then we start with a smaller meeting. We call it a steering committee. It's a one-time meeting of representatives from all different parts of town. So
Okay.
that group, you know, for us, we don't want to come in and even have a, you know, we don't even make recommendations around what the town should be discussing. So the steering committee decides the topics for discussion,
Okay.
and they also help us outline a pretty in-depth outreach and invitation process.
Mhm.
So that happened back in November. And then the first public meeting was the December 4th forum. So
Right.
on December 4th, we had 9 different forums on topics chosen by local leaders in the steering committee. And we had about 150 people participate throughout the day in these various forums. Community dinner, really fun at the Moose Family Center.
Mhm, mhm.
But the forums were all structured to say, what are the assets in this area? So arts and entertainment, recreation, infrastructure. I think there was, what else? Attracting young families.
Yeah,
There was kind of a whole array. Assets, challenges, and then ideas for the future. We also had a visiting team of about 25. We looked at those topics and we brought a team of the top leaders and experts in Vermont on those issues
Oh, okay.
that weren't there to give speeches. They were
But
there
they
to
were-
listen
all
and,
right, all right, okay.
and be a resource to the community.
Mhm.
They shared some reflections, but it's, I think, a unique, I think those top leaders come with us and join us because it's different from the work that they typically
Sure.
do, where they
Oh, yeah.
are expected to do a speech, whatever. I think they like listening and learning about the community. So out of the December 4th forums, we have a whole thick packet of notes of all the
Okay.
potential ideas. We'll take those ideas, we'll analyze all of that input, and we'll bring a list of kind of big picture ideas back to the community on January 8th. So that'll
Okay,
be
so
the
that's
next step in
January
the
8th. That's
process.
that's a date to remember, folks.
Yes.
January 8th is the next forum, and the next forum will it be like and maybe I should not be quiet here, but is it going to be like one big forum, or is it going to be breakouts like the last time?
It's different from the last time. So this one is one big forum. So
Okay.
the last one, we invited people to attend any of those forums that they wanted to,
Mhm.
one or all of them or whatever worked for them. This one, the meeting on January 8th is 6:30 to 9, and it's everyone invited together into one discussion. And no outside visiting team invited. This is all local
pure,
voices.
yeah.
And the goal of the meeting is to review all those ideas. And so we'll have all the input from the December 4th forums. We're also today doing a youth forum with students in the community. We've also been gathering input online through a survey and some written surveys and some little written action cards that people filled out. So
Okay.
there's all different ways for
Yeah,
input.
right.
We'll condense those ideas and bring them back and put them up on the wall on January 8th. And that's the chance for community members to review them together, and then we go through a process of what we call championing those
Okay.
ideas. So
Yeah.
it's not about having this big debate back and forth. It's about saying what's the most actionable and important
allowing
idea.
people to somehow prioritize what
Yeah,
they,
and then we do a vote to get
Yeah.
down to those top
Oh, okay.
priorities. So
Is it like multi-voting where you can vote on a number of things and then you bring it together? And
exactly, everyone
Okay.
has these little dots. There's a different number
Oh,
of
yeah,
them.
yeah,
We put
yeah,
them
yeah.
on the wall.
Okay.
It's kind of fun. It's like a game show in some ways. And that night we'll walk out of the meeting with 3 to 5 top priorities that Rockingham wants to take on today. And that night we ask people to sign up for task forces to work on those things. So
Mhm.
the idea is that this process doesn't just build a list, like a wish
Yeah.
list of
Yeah,
things.
right.
It's all about action
It's-
and about local folks kind of stepping up and saying, I'm willing to put my time and energy behind
Right,
this. And
okay.
that's what it depends
So
on.
like the first, and to simplify, the first groups were like brainstorming. You were like
Exactly,
everything,
yeah.
throw everything at
Yep.
the anything that comes up, we can have it. And now
Exactly.
you're sort of bringing those things together, refining it. Pardon me. And then in this next group of things, it's going to be the grouping things together and prioritizing part.
Exactly,
And
yep.
then actually assigning tasks. That's really that's
Yeah.
great. That's
Yeah.
a fantastic.
And then there's a final step. So in February, there'll be a final meeting And that's where we go from those priorities to action plans. So
okay.
we facilitate discussions. Essentially, it's like a first meeting of these task forces.
Mhm.
We meet all together first, and we break up into task forces and build action plans. What are the things we need to do now to start working towards these goals? And also we help the task forces build a list of resources. So at that meeting, I described the kind of visionary visiting team in the beginning. We bring a resource team to that third meeting. So we look at the priorities that Rockingham chooses, and we look at who are the people who can bring funding to these initiatives, can bring technical support, or sometimes even communities that have been successful in that work before. We bring them to sit down with these task forces and work with them to think about action steps that can work, and especially funding and technical resources to help compile that. And we'll compile it all into a final report that we bring back
and
to
give to
Rockingham
people and they
in the
can
end.
work it out. So you must, as we're sitting here talking, I'm thinking, you must see a broad, because you do this across the state, you must see, you get a profile, maybe profile isn't the right word, but an idea of what different towns are and where they are in sort of the economic process, the development process, the education levels. Do you feed that back to the state and say, well, here's some, we're really doing well in this area because maybe up in the Northeast Kingdom, they're really strong at doing this, but if you look in the southern part of the state, they're not so good at that. Is that, are those things that come out, or, because I would think you must have a unique perspective because of the way you get to listen to people talk about these things and observe what's going on.
Yeah, we do, and I think I was saying before the taping, it's my favorite part of my job that I get to know these communities in kind of a unique way. And we're not an advocacy organization, and our neutrality is really important.
Well, I think that would be a big strength
in our work. Yeah, it's really
because
critical.
you would give you validity too.
Yeah, so we don't advocate for any one thing, but we do, where we're asked, provide counsel and information and kind of thought partnership.
Right.
The Vermont, we have a lot of really deep partnerships with organizations that are trying to bring support to communities, and they look to us and to this process as a way of learning what's important to communities.
Right.
And so the Vermont Community Foundation is a close partner of ours. For them, with their funding capacity and tools to support communities, they see this process as a way to learn what's really going on, what's important to communities, not just, and the nonprofits working in communities are critical, but I think these organizations look to what are community members looking for, not just hearing from those service providers. They want to hear from the community.
Because everyone looks through their own filters. And
I think it's true. And other partners are like USDA Rural Development, the regional planning commissions and regional development corporations, the Northern Borders Regional Commission as a major fund for community work. The Agency of Commerce and Community Development, they come on every single one of these with us. The Deputy Secretary is on our board and facilitates these meetings with us. And so I think we can kind of serve as a place for these folks to learn about what's going on in communities. And
really important.
And we see trends, over time. I, in fact, was just at a hearing. The Rural Caucus in the legislature last night was holding a hearing on rural economic development, and I was sharing some of that. Not advocating for one thing, but saying here's what communities are thinking hard about today.
I would think that you would have that without even identifying communities. You could say, here are, from my observation, here are 5 things that people would really be interested in working on. Or
we see trends in what communities are selecting as these priorities, and lately there are some pretty clear trends. I mean, every town we're working with is thinking about broadband connection or high-speed internet. Many communities thinking about water and sewer infrastructure and building that infrastructure. But a lot of people are thinking about community connection and events and recreation. And
well, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's sort of what we do here, is we try to do community connection and
Well, Fact TV came up as in a lot of the forums I facilitated anyways, as a really key asset in Rockingham.
I'm pleased to hear that.
Yes, people see that value in the communications.
Because it is sometimes difficult. We do a lot of, without blowing our own, we do a lot of things and we don't get a lot of feedback. And sometimes you think you're just talking out to the space. Here we are. It's like you and I, and there's a monitor, and here we are. And we're talking to the world, but we don't. It's
well, I heard certainly that it's an important role, and communication and connection came up a lot in the forums on December 4th. I think that's going to be a big part of the conversation here.
So I think one of the things that's really important in this process is including as many people as you possibly can. And it sounds like you're really moving to do that. How can we today, you and I, encourage people or give them venues that they can then contact you or provide feedback, because it's not too late, right?
No, not at all. In fact, I would say this next meeting is like the most critical turning point in the discussion, because we heard all the brainstorming on December 4th, but now it's time to look through all that and decide what's most important and what people really want to get down to and
sort
work
of
on.
Separating the wheat from the chaff.
So it's pretty critical, and so I encourage everyone in Rockingham to attend, to get involved. There's a couple different ways to do that.
And we have your website.
Contact info. Oh, perfect. Yes. So you can visit the website, email me directly, Jenna@vtrural.org. We have a Facebook page set up where people can join and follow along with the discussion. We also would still welcome input from folks. So that email that's up on the screen.
So how would people give that input? Would they just write you an email and say, "Well,
absolutely.
I wasn't involved, but I think it's really important that we do this, this, and this."
Yes, we're still welcoming that, and I'm getting those all the time
from
people.
Good.
So there's an
good.
online survey out there. If people come across that, they can provide input, but it all goes to the same place. Same with the youth forum we have today. We'll put that all in the same place, and you can imagine there's going to be some trends that come up.
Right.
If you have a forum on arts and entertainment, and one on recreation, and one on economic revitalization, there's going to be some things that connect, and that's what we'll add up to bring back next month. So hopefully we won't miss anything. But on January 8th, we'll also have the opportunity for people to add if we did miss anything. So we're always open to that
That's
input.
Great. Yeah, very good. I guess the 8th is going to be at Town Hall.
Yes, January 8th, Town Hall, 6:30 to 9.
And today is going to, we're not going out live, so that's not going to work too well. But today you're meeting with Friends for Change, right? And the kids from Friends for Change and any other interested kids that want.
Yeah, Friends for Change and Greater Falls Connections have helped me set up a group of youth in the community that are really eager. They've done some prep work over the last week to really think hard about ideas for the future of the community. And it's like, those are the people we really want to hear from, in a way. Like, this is the future of the community.
Yeah, who's most to benefit or not benefit from these changes? It's not the youth.
And that's certainly something we heard in the forums. People were really wanting to hear from young people in the community and think about that kind of next generation of leadership in the town. So we'll hear their ideas, and they'll get put in the mix as well, on as equal weight to everyone else's ideas. And often when we always do these youth forums in communities we work in, and it's really common that ideas that end up on the wall for voting, and in fact that end up being prioritized, are ideas that came from students. Because they're creative and interesting and fun in a lot of ways. So.
We actually did a show with Laura from Greater Falls Connections yesterday, and we were talking about that whole idea that the kids have really stepped up and are really engaged, but also really happy to be engaged, and that's just a real refreshing thing, because there are a lot of generational differences. I think in the United States right now, but even those carry down into the small towns, and it's nice to see that the kids are like, we're going to go for it, and this Friends for Change is headquartered here, and it's been one of my special. I don't know, prides is one, but whenever they're there, it's fun to see. They're always fun to be with, and they're enthusiastic, and they're doing things, and it's real.
Well, they were very present in the forums on the 4th, and there were a lot of ideas circulating about youth programming and maybe even a youth center, like a community center for young people. And who knows what the priorities will be in the end, but there were some really interesting ideas that would provide some of that opportunity and services for young people in the community. So it was really exciting to hear all those different ideas, to hear from everyone on the 4th, but But this will be that kind of chance to review together and really come down to what people are going to work on.
Because that was
today.
basically one of the forums was about youth and keeping youth in Vermont and keeping youth in the communities.
That's
in
right,
Vermont.
attracting and retaining young people.
Right.
Yeah.
I can imagine that must be across the state, because I know the governor talks about it a lot, and it has to be important because it's the same everywhere.
Yeah, we have a lot of communities really thinking hard about that, and in some communities they're setting up like school community partnerships and really looking at like the concrete ways that they can integrate kids in the school.
Right. I would actually think that would tie with broadband too, because
That's right.
broadband creates opportunity, and not just the kids. It creates opportunity for everyone, but most especially for people who are growing up and just entering the workforce. If they have those opportunities, I know my daughter actually works from home because she happens to live in a place that has an amazing broadband connection, and because of that, she's able to be here in Vermont, and that's great. So we have to go back and do a little who, what, when, where, and how now.
Okay.
All right. So, who's doing it? Oh, let's start with what. What are we talking about here?
Okay, what? So the Let's Take Action process is a process to set priorities for the future of Rockingham.
Okay.
And so we've had our first forums on December 4th. The next meeting is January 8th, 6:30 to 9 at the Town Hall in Bellows Falls. And so this will be the meeting to set priorities. And then we'll have our final meeting in February. And who is everyone? Everyone,
Yes.
everyone in Rockingham is invited.
If you were there the last time, come back. If you weren't, be there.
Yes, thank you. That's a great point. No need to have participated before. We often have a lot of new people at the second meeting, and that's great. I mean, this is the point where it's most critical to have as many voices as we can in the room.
And if you were there the last time, bring 2 people with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so to learn more, you can email me. I think the information is up on the screen, right?
It's going to be again.
It will be.
Right here in a moment.
You can visit our website for contact info or email me, jenna@vtrural.org, or give me a call, and there's still opportunities for input. I'm always happy to discuss the process more with anyone.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
This has been a great show. I hope you
Yeah,
enjoyed it.
I really enjoyed
I
it.
hope you'll
Thank you
come
so
back.
much.
I
Yeah.
want to get feedback after we do this, and maybe even do another show before, but I'm not sure we have time for that. I'd love to hear what the Youth Forum comes up with.
Yeah.
And so thank you again, and
Thanks so
thank you,
much.
Rockingham, for putting up with us for a half hour, and we'll see you.
Thanks.